who you are, say what you mean. Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. He wanted to go skate. I had to go because our entire house had to go. I made Ryan a Tossin Salads t-shirt. Do you think we can get like a cliff jumping photo of us in our wedding gear? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need to think about that. We travel full time right now. Right now I'm at my in-laws, but we have been living and traveling around the US in a van for like a year and a half. So we have been to like 35
that's so
states.
awesome.
Yeah. It's been great. I think we're at the tail end of it. We're ready to be less mobile, but it's been honestly really, really fun.
Ah, cool. That's so rad. I've always wanted to do that. My wife doesn't want to do the road trip type part of it, but I'm like, man, we should. Like when we had our kids were younger, now they're like too old to do it. But
Yeah.
I was like, we should just drive around and like just have the kids experience like this life. And she's like, I don't want to sit in the car for that long. So
I will say it
I'm
was
jealous of you guys.
yeah, my husband was the one who was like, if I don't do this, I will regret it. And I was like, all right, well then we can't not do it. So he was very much pushed us into it.
Was
But
he reading this in his vows?
no, he just when we were planning on moving, he was like, well, just so you know, this is the one place I'd regret not living. And I was like, well, we have no other dependents, so we better get this taken care of real quick.
How long you guys been married for?
Oh yeah, like only almost 2 years. Like we got married and then
Oh
moved into
wow, you guys
yeah.
are fresh.
Yeah, it was a
You
bold
guys are
move.
hot
It
off
was
the plate.
really yeah, really good way to pressure test a marriage, you know?
If you can make it through this, you can make it through anything.
That's what we're hoping. That's what we're hoping.
I like it. Um, well, if you want, I can start the interview and get sort of going.
I'm ready whenever you are, I think.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll just do a little intro and then we'll go. All right, here we are. We have Emily on Drawn to Your Story, and she's going to jump into the 10 questions. How you going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. Let's jump into the first question. Breathe underwater or fly?
Fly. Definitely fly.
Is that because you've been road tripping and you're just like, I can get to the destination a lot quicker now?
It's funny. I grew up as a swimmer, so like part of me was thinking like,
Oh,
oh, breathing underwater, I should want to do that, but I feel confident in my ability to swim, and I have no interest in going any deeper in the water than like 10 feet or so. So I feel like flying is much more efficient.
do you know, my wife also grew up as a swimmer, and so did all her family. And I feel like they all say the same thing. Like, I don't want to breathe underwater, but I also don't want to go any deeper. Like, my
Yeah.
wife was a way better swimmer. I'm shit at swimming. I'm shit at surfing, but I will sit out surfing, and I'll sit out there, and she's, I don't want to go out that far. And I was like, it's not that deep. Like, you can swim better than me. And she's like, no, sharks, or whatever it is. I'm like, okay.
I think I have just seen, well, there's two things. One, I don't like, I'll do like lake swimming in the summer sometimes for exercise,
Yeah.
and like there's like lake weed or whatever, and it touches
Oh,
my
yeah.
legs. It freaks me out. And then I watched,
Yep,
those
yep.
Planet Earth things about the deep sea, and I was like, yeah, there's way too much down there that I can't see. I don't need to I don't need to be anywhere close to that.
I remember going surfing one time and I got slammed like off a wave because one, I'm not good, so rarely standing up, but loved it so much. Slammed into a wave, off the wave, and landed in seaweed, and I was like stuck,
Ugh.
like getting out of it, and I just remember hating it because I was like, and then as I'm getting out of it, it was like I was able to stand. I step on a fish called like a cobbler, and it's got this
Ugh.
spike on the top. I step on it, my foot swells up on the bottom because it
Ugh.
was in the seaweed with it, and I get out and I'm like, oh, my foot's swollen. But I didn't drive at the time. I was a young cat hanging out with older cats, and they're like, we're not leaving. And so I just sat out there with a swollen foot, waiting for the waves, and like I'd catch waves and get on my swollen foot, and yeah. But
Yeah.
that seaweed
Seaweed.
is gross. I hate it. I now when it touches me, I'm like, "Grr."
It's a little heebie-jeebies. I Surfing is very humbling, and it's a great test of your lung capacity when you get tossed. And so I don't
Oh
mind
yeah.
that, but it's the I don't really know what's crawling across the bottom that gives me wigs me out of it.
It's more like I'm like when I think of it now, I'm like I don't know what's 100 feet out from there,
Yeah.
and it doesn't take for a shark or something to come 100 feet in is like this,
Yeah.
and so that plays in my head a little bit. But I've never seen a shark in the wild, so it's not like I'm like, oh man, living in Australia, I grew up and there's sharks everywhere. No, I didn't see any.
Everyone acts like Australia has all of the sharks, but you can find them anywhere. And as the water is heating up,
Yeah.
they're coming. They're coming to all the coasts. It's a little creepy.
Well, I get that a lot. Like everyone's like, you guys go. I'm never going to Australia because you guys got all the worst bugs, spiders, snakes, and I'm like, I grew up catching all these things, and if I survived as an idiot, like it wasn't like I was like the
Yeah.
Steve Irwin or the Crocodile Dundee. I was just like, oh hey, let me get in there and like grab this. If I survived, anyone else can.
Well, that's the thing. If Australia has all of these deadly animals and insects, which they do, the rate at which they kill humans is incredibly low. So it's kind of just a fun fear mongering rather than like
Yeah, yeah.
unless you have
It
to
makes
be.
us seem tougher than what we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good street cred for you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I get into a gang fight and I'm like, hang on, wait, 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 wait. Let me pull out a snake. That's not a knife. This is a snake, like that thing.
You might win. You might win.
No, I'm not. But I'd have like a second or more to try and dodge or weave. um, what do you do to pay the bills?
Oh, I work in human resources. I'm like the rule person at work.
Oh, are you?
Oh, yeah, a little
So,
bit.
like,
A little bit.
how does that work while you're traveling?
Yeah, so right now, so I was working remotely for a fully remote company, which was okay. But then my husband and I both
Yeah.
quit our jobs because we were like, the point of traveling is to not, is to experience the travel, not be trying to figure out where we can work on the road. So we like
Yeah.
budgeted, saved up, whatever. We spent, gosh, like 6, 8 months not working, and now I'm doing consulting. My background in
Yep.
human resources is for like setting up and scaling companies. So what I do right now is really just kind of plug and play. I can set up your immigration program, your compliance program, your onboarding, your performance reviews, like all of that stuff. Um, and, hopefully not take the emotional baggage that normally comes with the full-time role of HR. So it's while we travel now, it's pretty easy. I've been learning a lot about the American Public Library system. You can rent rooms for free.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the few places you can hang out for free. So a couple days a week, we find a new library, and I'll get a couple hours in. But yeah, I'm not back in the full-time mode quite yet.
Yeah, yeah. So, what size companies are you doing these like
Yeah.
building up this for? Is like a mum and pop like accountant firm that's like, hey, we need to grow to like we're at 5 people, we need to grow to 15, or
Yeah, so my background is in like tech companies, really, which is mainly because
okay,
that's just kind of where I started my career in San Francisco. And that's both great and incredibly challenging. So, one of my earlier jobs, I was there like from 80 to about 1100. Right now, I've got two companies I'm working with. One is 20, one is like just starting, about 3 to 5 employees, and they're global. So I
okay,
can I would say my sweet spot for where I don't need to be fully involved, and I can kind of do the part-time consulting thing, is under 100 employees. But really, the industry doesn't
oh wow,
matter. Just because I've just had the experience of global expansion, so I know what it looks like moving into different countries. I know how to do the immigration. I understand. I've worked in highly regulated industries, so I'm very familiar with like the compliance piece. And then at the end of the day, it's all the people stuff, and people do weird shit at work, and so that's really the crux of what I help with.
God, I one time at a company that I worked at, there was a guy that would wear a big moo
Yep.
and you could tell he didn't have anything underneath. And when he'd go to the bathroom, he would hang it up.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, that's a big commitment, like,
Yeah.
in there. Like, you wouldn't see anything, but, like, then you'd hear other stories from people tell us. It was crazy. But anyway, yeah, so I feel like people are weird in general.
Yeah.
And so then, like, you put them into a workplace that they're, like, sort of locked into, especially if they have to go to the office.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
The
then
way,
they're like, oh, yeah, this
yeah.
becomes home, a little bit comfortable.
The way I think about
Yeah.
it.
I remember...
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go for it. Mine's a shitty story. Don't
I
worry
was
about
going to say, the way I think about it is you grow up and you've spent the majority of your lifetime with your family and at school. And in those environments, it's a little bit structured, but you have a lot of freedom. And then maybe you graduate high school or you graduate college, and all of a sudden you're spending the majority of your waking hours in a working environment. And so whatever's going on outside of those working hours tends to percolate in. And so, people end up crying in the office all the time. Maybe not about work, maybe about work. Or people get in yelling matches. Or, they bring their weird lunches that accommodate their weird diet. And so it's just like, I didn't really realize it until I was in it, but people just kind of have their weirdness slowly like trickle into work, and it creates a really kind of interesting environment.
Yeah. I remember one of my co-workers was telling me how one time with the engineers, they had to enforce a hygiene rule at one of the other places they worked. And they said it got to a point where someone was trimming their toenails at the desk. And she goes, like, I tried to ignore it, but one, it didn't hit me, but it landed on my chair. But the landing on my, like, chair, there was, like, a little... And she was like...
Yep.
That's like a thick toenail. Like, that just hit my chair. Like, she's like, so she was like, I need some boundaries here. Like,
yeah.
So,
and it's
I
awkward.
can see that. I see what you're saying.
Oh, totally. And it's awkward because as the HR person, you're the one that has to go and be like, hey, why are you clipping your toenails at the office? And, well, blah, blah, blah. And you have to, like, you're having a very real conversation where the person is like, I don't see why this is a problem. And you're like, well, it's making everyone else uncomfortable. Well, there's no rule against, no one said we had to wear shoes in the office. And it's like, well, don't make us make that rule, Like, the goal is you're not doing something that's ruining it for everyone else, but it's surprising the reactions you get back in those conversations.
Isn't it really funny? Because we all talk about, like, when there's, like, a certain rule and you're like, well, there's no one doing that. It always takes one person to fuck it for the rest of us.
Yep. I think, like, people in HR get a bad rep as, like, the rules person. And I'm always kind of like, listen, it's kind of on everyone else for us to not have to make the rules. Because if we can all kind of use some sort of common sense and understand that we approach things differently, fine. But if we're going to get upset about it, that's when you have to start making the rules. And that sucks. That makes it a lot less fun.
Yeah.
So, like, try to show up and be not your full self. The workplace is not the place to be your full self.
Yeah. So do you, like, come in and be like, it's like almost like, when you hear those old things, like when a parent's spanking a child, like, not that I spank my children, but when I got spanked, my mum would say, this hurts me more than it hurts you. And you're like going in there and be like, guys, this hurts me more than it hurts you because I don't want to make this rule, but you got to wear shoes.
Oh, yeah. It's rare that I've said, like, you don't understand how much work you're creating for me by doing this, but there have been a few instances. But I mean, I do think people don't realize, like, a lot of people look at HR as you make rules and you're, like, who you complain to. But in reality, you're doing a lot of administrative paperwork, important stuff. And every time an employee comes with you with, like, a legitimate complaint or concern, you have a whole new work stream kicked off. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like, you're complaining about this person and you want me to do something about it. So now I have to go talk to 6 different people, and it's fine. If it's really a big issue, we'll figure it out. But it's, there's a lot involved when people have issues at work.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I was more of a like pretty easygoing employee. Like now I get to work for myself a little bit. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, like I get in, I do my job, and then I go home. Like that's
yeah.
good to me. Like
That's best case scenario. Yeah.
yeah. So outside of your 9 to 5, you have this amazing Instagram account that is called Skate Wives, and I can't tell you how many times I've come across your account and then just been like, holy shit, she just nailed this humor. Like the one where your husband's at the top of some stairs and
Oh
and
yeah.
you're like, this is what skaters do. They don't know how did I get up here. They look like how did I get up here? I don't know how to get back down. And I have definitely been like, and I'm an older skater now. Like your husband's got way more tricks. Like my knees sometimes hurt just looking at some of like the tricks and stuff. But I consume skateboarding so much.
Yeah.
And when like you said that, I've definitely been with my wife, and been like, oh, I'm just gonna look at this rail, and she's like, when she was younger, she was like, well, okay, maybe he'll skate that one time, or like, am I gonna have to hold the phone or whatever, just like you've had to.
Uh-huh.
But now she's like, he's not gonna skate that. But then I think about like all the tricks, not what I could do, and not even what I could do back in the day. I'm like, what could Yuto do on this? Oh, imagine if they did this. Like half the time I'm like doing all these weird hand signs as well, like like someone thinks that I'm like popping locking down there, like.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, so you've got this great. Um, how did it start? Like, how did you go from being like this is just a funny little quirk that like skate wives or skate girlfriends have, and then
Yeah.
how'd you go? You know what? I'm gonna start this thing.
It was my husband's idea. I don't know. I think he's okay with it. He might regret it. I don't know. He's just
You just
getting
got some
roasted
free
on the
shoes out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's working out. He's met. We met Jaws. We met Beagle. Two people. Like I'm
Oh
not
wow.
super in the skate world, so I'm just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
yeah, which I think is part of what works. But basically, we moved into the van, and I had like never my interactions with skateboarding prior to the van was like he'd be gone and he'd come back. Like I never went with him, or like we'd meet up after he was at the park or whatever, or like his friends would come over and watch a million skate videos, blah blah blah. But then we moved into the van, and what I didn't really realize was if he wanted to go skate, like I had to go because our entire house had to go. And so like all of a sudden, yeah, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm here and like I'm the only one he knows. So if he wants to film a trick, I'm doing this all the time. And I totally get it. It's been his like passion hobby forever. So it's like, I can help out, but I don't think filming is that fun. Like I'm sitting in the sun and he's doing something. I'm just like roasting. And so I don't know, we were doing it and I would make fun of him and he was like, you should just start making videos about this. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. And he's like, just start making videos about it. And clearly it is a very shared experience because a lot of people seem to resonate. And
Yeah.
so basically I would still say I don't really know that much about skateboarding. Like people will comment and
That's
I don't know what they're talking about in the comments. I'm like, I
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah,
is this a person? Is this a trick? Like I don't have any idea.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it works because I think like I tend to be a little sarcastic, but I also have the perspective of like
Oh yeah.
really an outsider in it. And then Ryan,
Oh
my
yeah.
husband, yeah, he reviews them all so that one, I'm not being too mean, and two, they're like there is a little bit actually he reviews most of them. Some of them I know that they're okay, but like he will make sure that I don't sound like an idiot or like I'm actually using the correct terminology. But yeah, it's a collaborative
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
that has just been
Oh
pretty
wow.
entertaining to
I
do.
didn't realize it
Yeah.
was so collaborative.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, he'll be out there, so I'll take videos and then I'll cut them up and he'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you put it together. Make this one small tweak. Because, like, again, or I'll have
Yeah.
to be like, what was that trick called? And then he says what it's called, and then I'll just make a joke, and he's like, that's the joke that you should probably make. And I was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
really it comes out of me just riffing and ripping on him and him being like,
Yeah, yeah,
That's a funny skateboarding joke. And I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. So when my wife and I first got together, she's American, I'm Australian, and we
Yeah.
met while she was studying abroad. But then we lived apart for about a year and a half. Like we'd travel
Mhm.
back and forward,
Whew,
and I was just
long
a
distance.
huge skate rat back then.
Yeah.
And so when we moved together, she'd be like, I'd go, I'm going to go skating. But because I'd been a skate rat for so long, but also because we'd have done long distance, so it'd just be like a phone call and be like, all
Yeah.
right, now I'll go do whatever I want. I'll be like, I'm going to go skating for an hour or so. And I wouldn't come back for like 6 hours. And she'd be like,
Yeah.
what have you been doing? And this is before, like, we had cell phones, but like you'd put it in the bag, you couldn't hear it, you didn't have your
Oh,
watch or
yeah.
whatever. And I just would be like, but I was just skating. I told you I was going to. She, but you've gone for 6 hours. I was like, yeah. Then we got food. Then we skated this other spot. Then we went to this spot. Oh yeah, it was kind of fun. And then she's like, I I had no concept because I was just in the skate brain. But then as time went on, my wife would be like, hey, just go skating. Go hang out with people. Like there's that. She gets that
Yeah.
common knowledge sort of thing.
Hmm.
And then
That,
she starts like picking up this.
the lingo. Oh, I was just going to say
Yeah,
when we started dating, he was just like, "Oh, I'm going out skating," and I realized he like kind of told me he was like, my phone will probably die, or it's like it's usually in the bag that's like on the side. I'm not like really contactable, and I'm like, okay, well, like if your phone dies and something happens, that will be inconvenient, but it's kind of on you to figure out how to solve that problem. But
yeah, yeah,
really,
yeah.
I basically realized if he ever says he's going out skating, I don't really count on him to be able to make it to plans unless we have a really hard set like dinner plan or something. And
Yeah.
that's like that worked out totally fine for me. It's like, all right, I've got a whole day to myself, do whatever. But it was very funny because we lived in San Francisco for like almost 8 years or something. And our friends would always text and say, like, oh, like we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, great, I'm in. Is Ryan coming? Or Ryan hasn't been responding to my text messages. I'm like, oh, don't count on him. Like if he wants to,
Yeah,
he'll
yeah.
show up, but like don't wait for dinner. Don't like make a reservation that he's on. Like he will take care of himself and show up if he needs to. And it's a cultural difference, I think, between skaters and non-skaters.
That is so. I think we also get to be. It sounds weird, but I think we get to be a child for longer.
Yeah.
Like, because and not that it's a children's sport. It's that it's like this freeing thing that I get to go and do something that is my own. Like, if
Hmm.
you have to go play, like a sport like soccer or something, you've got other people that you need to do it with. Like skateboarding, I can just walk outside and practice on a curb for an hour, and
Yeah.
I'd be like there. So you're like that. I'm insular in this world. Like when you're a kid, you're playing and kind of like I'm in this like world doing it. So I have a question on from an outside perspective for skaters. What is I've got a few life lessons that I've learnt as a skateboarder.
Yeah.
What are some life lessons you think that they learn as a skateboarder?
I feel like determination is a really big one. I think like or really what it is like I feel like what hooks skateboarders is the fact that like you spend so long trying something and then it eventually clicks. And it's kind of from my perspective a really great life lesson of like, hey, it's not going to be easy to get somewhere, but like along the way you may pick up other tricks, you may meet people, and then you will get it. And it's like a way to prove to yourself that you can do something. And I don't think there's
Yeah,
actually like a ton of sports activities that like people carry with them for so long throughout their life, right? Like it gets lost in the sauce of going to school, or your first job takes up too much time, and having that skateboarding as an outlet for exercise and whatnot, but also that continue. It's basically a way that you get to knock yourself down a bunch of times and build yourself back up. And so that kind of like determination
oh
of like,
yeah,
you can make it work, I think is very, very valuable. I don't know how skaters turn
yeah.
it into their life skills, but like that definitely is a commonality.
I definitely agree with that. I think about it in that same thing. Like I always say, knocked down 7 times, you get up 8. There's that famous saying that's sort of out there. I don't know who it's by, but I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
But the camaraderie, like when I grew up, there's a little bit, and I grew up in a small town. There's a little bit of this like haterism where people are like, oh, I can do that trick or I can do that. But for the most part, when someone got like a new trick, they were like, oh, dang, you could do that, or like, hey, how'd you try that? Or you'd see someone now at the skate parks. It's like you're just seeing so many people do like whether it's good stuff or I see like someone trying their kick flip or the girl skate scene at the moment.
Yep.
I just love watching because they're in that sort of 90s era where they're like just boom, 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 just like stacking up their skill set, but it's like spreading further and further. And I'm like, oh, they get to enjoy this right now. Where you got people like Yuto that look like aliens spinning around on a rail for 20 times. And you're like, how? I don't even know your body could do that.
Yeah. Well, I will say
I do feel that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I personally find skate parks like a little intimidating. I was not one of those kids that like hung out at skate parks or drank beers at skate parks or whatever. And like, still now I'm like walking up, I'm like, feel awkward because I mean, skaters are really nice. You just like don't know whatever. But what's been really interesting is we'll go to skate parks and I'll be like hanging out or reading or whatever. And it doesn't really matter who is doing what. But if someone lands something, everyone has kind of been there for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. And so they've all kind of, like, you have to be aware of where everyone is in the park and what they're doing so you don't hit each other. And then all of a sudden someone, like, pops their first ollie. And, like, a lot of people are, like, cheering and knocking their boards or whatever you do. And it is a really interesting, like...
Yeah, the board tap. Pop, pop, pop,
yeah.
pop.
It's an interesting community of like, hey, if you're out putting in your effort, like we're stoked about it. And that's a really nice community aspect.
Yeah, like you can rock it. I've taken my skateboard all across the world and I've rocked up to skate parks where people look so hardcore or like, and I'm like, hey man, how are you? Oh yeah, good. Like the Australian accent helps a little bit, but then I've never run into an issue where someone has been like rude. Like it's definitely people that own the locals that feel like they own the skate park. But I rocked down you've heard of Burnside, right, in Portland? I'm sure your husband's spoken about that.
It's totally possible I've actually been there, but like I'm sure I've heard of it.
So it's like this DIY park, right? And it's known for being very if you go to take photos there, they will be like, nope, like you can't take photos. What are we getting out of it? You're like gonna sell these, and so they'll like bring a case of beer, and I saw this firsthand because I thought it was a myth. I saw this firsthand when I was skating down there. But as a skater going down there, I'm like, hey guys, is it not to play? Is it cool if I jump in? And they're like, oh yeah, of course. So I jump in, and so I start skating it, and I like do an ollie, but I take this heavy like. It wasn't a great ollie, but it was just a heavy, awkward slam. I get up, and they're like, I walk over, and they're like, you good? And I'm like, yeah, that was just an awkward slam. Like, yeah, oh, there's a little bit of a bump there. You got to ollie over that. Or something like that, they said. I can't remember the... And so they give me... But because they saw that the work that could be put in, you know what I mean? They were like, oh, okay, you're good. But they were skating that thing like it was nothing. Like, they were just, like, carving around. There was this pregnant woman skating it, and I was like... What the heck? Like carving around the like little corner pocket, and I was like, no, I'm good. I might quit skateboarding now because you just tandem that board.
We went to, oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed that if I get this wrong. I think it was in Kansas, and it was underneath a bridge, and it was like a very cool, I can tell you, I made a video about overcrook versus nose grind, maybe. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Which. And we were there, and that's a great example of a park where you're like, oh, it's under a bridge. There are some sketchy people here, but there's also like really friendly skaters. And there were some people that I was just like, holy shit, they are so good. And my husband was like, yeah, when you grow up with a very cool park like this, you're going to be the best person at the park because you can like skate it blind. And so it's very cool to see people at their home park because they can do some crazy shit.
Yeah. That's a crazy, even pro skaters, like when they go to those like parks, they're like, they don't want those people that can rip the park to skate because they're like, we're here to sort of entertain you guys, but at the same time, you know this park inside out,
Yeah.
So obviously you're going to know, oh, I hit this nook right here and I can pump out of that. Or this one's got a chunk out of it, so I take my weight off a little bit here or whatever it is. Like just these tiny little things. And it's all like micro decisions having it.
Yep.
The other thing I was going to say, I would love to get your perspective on this. And it goes back to the little story about your husband walking up the stairs and like skaters being lost.
Yeah.
Do you find, like, I have no idea what your husband does for a living, but obviously he has some creativity. One, because he skates, but also because of what he did with the telling you about to do the video, to have that perspective. I find that skateboarders, because we're told by skateboarding, not by people, to look at the world differently. Like, a set of stairs is not for walking up and down. A rail's not just for holding your hand on it. A curb is for olling onto, for slappy grinds. Like, there's all these different ways to use these obstacles. Do you find, from your perspective, that skateboarders seem more creative just because they're meant to view things differently?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my husband's my husband's mother was my husband's mother was the first person who pointed it out. It was back when we were dating and we were walking around San Francisco and Ryan was doing that, like stopping and looking at, a wall. And it's like, I don't know what's going on here. And she was like, yeah, he looks at the world differently, And I was more and more, I totally understand that. It's totally like the world is the concrete world is a gymnasium really for skaters. And I think when I've met them, I've met a variety who are like OCD and like clean and structured, and others who are like a little bit more free flow. But most of them tend, even in their like 9-to-5 jobs, tend to be more of what I would call like project based rather than 9-to-5 corporate, where like either their job is touching something that sparks a little creativity, or their job gives them the ability to do something. And my husband is definitely like that. He sees the world differently. He has different ideas of how to communicate, which I think is very interesting. And so I think skateboarding, actually that's maybe what it is skateboarding lends itself to different communication style in terms of like showing what you're doing and like communicating maybe a little bit more physically rather than verbally.
Yeah. Do you know what is funny? Like, now you say that, and so there was this is going to mean nothing to you, but maybe the audience, if they're watching it, there's this video of Rodney Mullen back in the day, and he's got like a day in the life of or something like that on this old video cassette called 4-on-1. Even your husband might be too young for this, but and it shows him like going, he does this like front crook, and then he's going to do a nollie varial out or something like that, or a nose manual nollie 360 flip. And you see him get the board, and then he flicks it, and he's like, and you can see his brain working. And I swear, whenever me and my friends are like, sort of, hey, how do you do that trick? And they're like, well, you grab the board, and they're like, it's the hand signals. Like, it's not just the slang or the way you talk about it. Like, hey, flip this, a little bit of pressure here, or like push your toe. Like, so I fully see that. Yeah, the communication is a great way to put that. That's a nail. See, that's why we need outside perspectives.
Came off the top of my head, so I'm sure we'll pressure test it. But I think I do think there's something to be said there, right? Like the communication and expression is much less specifically verbal and much more in the action of what's being done. And I think that is probably the line of creative versus non-creative, right versus left brain or something. I don't know.
So I'm going to do one thing for you. If you can tell me from a distance what this means, and then you and my wife are on the same part. If I go,
one more try, technically, but it's a lie.
And there's been so many times where
I'm like, oh,
my wife has been there, and I've been like, yep.
Yeah. I just get in the car at that point, and I'm like, if the car's running, maybe that turns it closer into last try. I don't know.
Yeah. It's been so many times, like when so I don't skate as much anymore. Like I consume it. My knees and my ankles are just not up to it. But as also the skate park I have really close to myself is like really poor. I live in the suburbs and it's a really bad skate park. To drive to a good one, it's like a long way, and I'm like, so I play a lot of pickleball.
Okay. Oh, I
And
love
so
that.
I'll be on the phone. Yeah, I love it. But I treat it like I do shots. I do a lot of spin trick shots, and I
Oh,
treat them like tricks in my head.
yeah.
So I'll be like all day. I'll be like, I do this big like curve shot that curves around. And I'll be like, I want to get this shot. It's like in the skater's mouth. I'm like, okay, get it. But then I get it. I'm like, I don't need it anymore. I'll get this shot over here. So like I'm like that's how my brain works for it,
Yep.
which makes it like a fun player to play with, but also makes me like frustrating to play with as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my wife will get on the phone and she'll be like, oh, how far are you? I'll be like, oh, one more game. And she'll be like, okay, one more game. I get it. And then there's times where you're like, no, you're not getting that one more game. Like, get out of me. Fair enough. I've got they're done.
That's funny. That's funny that translates to pickleball.
Yeah, I think the one more, like even surfing, like I remember when I was a kid, like one more wave, and you get one more. But the skateboarding, it's definitely everywhere in the world I've been, like the one more try. Like I was in Peru one time, I have a skateboarding tat, like a broken love heart skateboard, and I was in Peru and I walked over to the guy and I was like, showed him my tattoo and I was like, can I do a trick on your board? And he spoke broken English and like he's like, yeah. So I did a trick and I didn't land it and I tried to, and I went, well, he goes, oh, one more. Like he was already into it. And so we got it. I got the trick and I said thank you, gave him the board back, and like we like little dabbed each other up and then like left. But it was like that little international language of like
It's universal. Fun. It's universal.
Universal. Is what with the skate wives things? What stuff has happened outside of the stuff that we haven't seen? So I saw you got some shoes delivered. Like, are you guys making merch? Like, what are you guys? Are you just having fun with it? Like,
I would say we're mostly having fun with it. We've made some merch, which is just like for fun. Like I have stickers, and so I'll stick them at skate parks and places we'll go, which is kind of nice. And I'll send them out to people. I made Ryan a Tossin' Salads t-shirt, which was just purely to like really needle him a little bit. And then what's really interesting is there's like the people who get it, and then there's people who don't. So like a lot of people think that I am a mean or a bad wife. And so we made these like hats that say bad wife on them. So I like wore that all winter long. But it's really just because like the two of us are bored and we're like, oh, this is funny. So it's mostly for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like they're for sale. I wouldn't say we're making like any money off of it, but it's just been very fun. Let's see. What else has happened outside of it? My crossbody bag from Cotopaxi. Like I have a fanny pack that I wear crossbody.
Yeah.
That like they sent us a couple of crossbody bags, which was awesome. So now I have 3 or 4, which is too many, but it's great because like they're the most convenient.
You're like, I gotta fit all these in the van. What do I do now?
I know. I'm like, oh dear, we don't have that much space. But yeah, I mean, I would say we've like not a like I think more influencers or creators or whatever you call them have a better audience for selling or partnerships. And not to say we couldn't, but I don't think the skateboard community is really the community that's trying to buy stuff off of Instagram. I think much more that's come from like getting deeper and deeper into the skate community. So like meeting up with Jaws or Beagle, or like I've been lucky enough to DM with people who Ryan told me how famous they were, and I was like, oh, okay. But so it's more just so it's been much more of just like I'm ending up very deep in this world that I just don't know very much about. It's fun.
I think so when I was younger, I used to get kind of jealous is not the right word, but you'd see the girlfriends and all that of people at these like famous events. Then they're like at a street league, they're sitting in the corner with all the other pros, and they're like, oh, they're cheering on. I was like, you don't know how hard that trick was that I just watched. And I'd be watching on TV, or maybe not street league, maybe an X Games or something, when I was like young, and I was like you're getting to live the life. But as I've got older, I honestly couldn't care enough about that stuff. But my brain has sort of warped it a bit more. I've gone like, you know what? They have to deal with a sweaty skateboarder on so many levels. They should get to enjoy the benefits of that. Like my wife, the amount of times that like it's something like I've come in, I'm sweaty, and I've done like a quick skater change to go out with this, and she's like, "You're still sweaty," and I'm like, "Yeah, we're fine, we're good. Boom, 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 boom. New shoes, new shirt, we're good to go." And she's like, "Okay." Yeah, little bit of Axe spray deodorant when I was younger, and I was like, "Good." Yeah. Cool. That sounds awesome. I think there's like it'd be funny if you got to do like, you know how there's like the table talk. If you got the girlfriends or the wives of them, and got to talk about like a podcast like that would be really interesting.
So for a couple months, I did like a short podcast series based on that exact thing, where it was like behind the scenes. Yeah. So I had the pleasure of interviewing Jordana DeCenzo, who is Ryan DeCenzo's wife.
Oh, yeah.
Kia Duffy, so Pat Duffy's wife.
Wow.
I feel like I'm really embarrassed that I'm not going to remember everyone that's skateboarder. I mean, how many skateboarders did I do? I don't know. I had at least those two. I feel terrible if I don't remember everyone. But I did like 14 episodes. I also did like Ryan Nyquist's wife or Nick Bruce, some like BMXers. And so basically the thing was like, I like talking. I think I can talk with people. And like the experience, like, what the hell am I doing with like the behind the scenes of a skateboarder, to your point, comes home sweaty, bloody, covered in dirt, and is like, yeah, I'm fine. No, I actually had a great day. And you're like, you've been gone for 6 hours and you look terrible, is such a common experience. And like getting to talk to some of the wives about like, when did you realize like, oh, this is like, we're not escaping this, has been a really, really fascinating. Tabitha Sloan, Elliot Sloan's wife, he has like the huge mega part, I think. Yeah, and so just getting to talk to these women and be like, oh, like, I mean, their husbands are professionals, mine's an amateur, but like, it is the same experience. The travel, the dirtiness, the like shredded clothes and shoes. It's fascinating.
And the care they, like, us skaters put into things that are just so don't matter. The concave in a board, the lift on a kick, the roundness of the tail. Like, and I'm sure with the BMX riders and stuff like that, it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then we try and talk to you guys about it because we're with you guys so much. So we're like, oh, hey, this new shoe come out and it's got this like detail on it. And my wife just glazes over. Like now she's better, but when we first did, she'd just be like, oh, what have I got myself into?
Well, it's also really interesting having talked to these people of like where the significant others sit on the I understand the skateboard world community. It's like a huge range, and like what I really appreciate about that is like it doesn't really matter. I make this comparison a lot, but like I watched the Beckham's documentary on Netflix about yeah, and Victoria Beckham gets on there and she's like, I hate football. Like, I would never watch football if I didn't have to, but I love David. So I love watching David. And I feel like that is like the baseline for every skate significant other is like, whether or not you like skateboarding, you like your significant other. So you will show up and be very excited to be there, even if you don't know the nuance.
A funny story just popped in my head is that I would skate my shitty skate park a lot when I was like younger here. Like, and when I talk bad, it's not the worst park I've ever skated, but it's pretty bad. But anyway, so I skated. I put some stuff online back when like Instagram had just taken off, and my wife's friend was like, "Oh, I saw pictures of Matty skateboarding," and then we were out to dinner with those people that same night, and she goes, "I saw pictures of Matty videos of Matty skateboarding. Oh, Jillian, don't you just find that so attractive?" And she was like, "No, couldn't care." She goes, "I love that he loves it, and I'll go down and watch him, but I don't care about like his like the ability on it." And I was just like, it's so funny that me and my wife just have this like opposite worlds thing where she'll
Yeah.
participate, but just she's like, well, you could be playing chess, and if you were into that, then I'd be there participating. I
It'd
wonder
be
if
this.
we, as skateboarders, like, sort of, we're all got this common denominator of pulling someone sort of in. Like, you care about me more than the activity, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Some poor person gets suckered in. That is for sure.
It's so true. So true. Also, why did you call it Behind the Scenes and not just Skate Wives,
Oh,
the
because
podcast?
okay, well, so when I actually this might be an interesting question for you. When I was like looking at it, I actually had a bunch of different names, and I was like, oh, there's all these podcasts that have those names already, and I was like googling it, and everyone was like, best practice is to not take someone else's podcast name. In hindsight, like no one, who was not a ton of people were going to listen to my podcast. It wasn't going to rub anyone the wrong way. But I didn't want to totally limit it to skate wives because I figured that like BMX or I had a couple downhill skiers, couple snowboarder wives. And so I wanted to see like, are these like, is this a common experience outside of skateboarding across not only like alternative or extreme sports, but also are these common with like more mainstream sports? And turns out, yeah, it's the same experience for everyone.
I personally think it should have been called Skate Wives
Yeah.
because you could just tie it into your branding there, and even if
Yeah.
you're like having people outside of that,
Yeah.
and that way it could be like a full globe branding part of it. And
Maybe
you could
round
travel
two.
the world with that.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
round two will do
Round
that.
two.
It's hard to know, or it's like it's a mix between being like, oh
It's
yeah,
an easy Google.
yeah, that's a very
That's how I would look at it.
yeah, that's a
I
good
would
point.
easily Google. Oh, like if someone heard on this, like, oh, Emily's got a podcast. I'm gonna look it up. I'll Google Skate Wives. I wouldn't
Yeah.
Google behind the scenes.
Yeah, because like, how would you ever
So-
know to Google that? Yeah, all right, it's good marketing.
yeah.
Back.
Yeah, I've done a little bit here and there. What? What outside of? Oh, hang on. Sorry, we're speaking about that for so long. I forgot where I was. All right. What is something you cannot live without?
Personally, cannot live without,
Yeah,
and like a physical item or anything.
whatever you want. I don't care. It's your question to answer.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like, wow, what can I not live without? I have a lot of answers, but I would say right now I couldn't live without like having access to a million books. I love reading, and that is like my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah, I wish that phones were not so addicting because I enjoy
God,
reading
you
so
and me
much
both.
more. Yeah, but it's like all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing? 45 minutes scrolling, like I
I'm
could have gotten
boom,
through
boom,
this
boom.
book. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I really can't live without good books because I love them, but I also can't survive without physical activity. Otherwise I get very, very cranky. So Ryan
Oh, yeah.
moves a lot in the skateboard. I just move a lot in general because otherwise I will go insane, I think.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, for the next question, what do you do for fun outside of being a skate wife?
Oh yeah, okay. Well, other than reading, this is a good question because Ryan with skateboarding, I think, is such like a tangible hobby or passion or activity to do. And mine, I feel like my interests they don't quite match up in the adventurous way because like I like to do plenty of adventurous things, but like really what I like to do is like I like to cook, I like to garden and grow plants, I like to read, I like to try new things if I'm good at them, I like listening to podcasts, I like walking, hiking, skiing. I love skiing, but like none of those are what I think is the difference is like Ryan has this passion and I have multiple things that I love doing, and but it's I have this like interesting response, or it's not an interesting response, this overly thought out response, because Ryan and I talk about it a lot because He's like, he has a hobby, and I just will never have that same singular
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
I'm always gonna
I
have
feel like I'm backtracking in my life. Because my wife has the same thing. My wife is super smart. Why she's with me, no idea. No idea. I tricked her somehow. Little voodoo magic, whatever you want. I tricked her. But she's super smart, and she's like you. She's got a broad interest in many things. So she'll be like, oh, I'd love to go on a hike. Or I'll go skiing that one time. Or I will go, I'll go out and do the planning and stuff like that, where I've got skateboarding,
Yep.
pickleball, and creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Food, I couldn't even care about. I could eat if I liked it, I could eat the same thing every day. Couldn't
Yeah.
care. If like, I don't even drink anymore. Like, like not for any reason, but it's not like I've got like, oh, I love a good beer or anything like that. I'm like, nope. I just like doing these things. I like the world of them, all this sort of stuff. And pickleball, I don't watch any pickleball. Like, I could not tell you who the most. I could tell you one of the most famous people, but I could not tell you anyone else. Skateboarding, I'm in the nitty gritty of it. Of like, oh, that person did this trick just recently. Oh, I can't believe that person landed that trick at that spot. Wow, I never thought that would happen. Like that stuff gets me going.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
interesting. Just like, I think there's the way social media and like modern times are, is there's like a lot of emphasis on having a passion, having a hobby, being well read, doing this, and it's just like a little overwhelming, because at the end of the day, just like enjoy the time that you're spending doing anything. You don't have to, like, we all
Yeah.
have different ways that we feed our souls. And yeah, so I try not to feel bad that I don't have a hobby, but your framing of
yeah, my
any interests, I like that.
yeah. But, we used to have the same exact discussion, because my wife would be like, I don't get it. Why you want to do this thing so much, or like what? And we would get sort of, right, especially we came from very different backgrounds. Like
Yeah.
she came from a very upper middle class sort of family, and then I came from like this dirty skate rat like surf town family, and so I was kind of like, they had their traditions, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's weird. I'm just gonna go do this because I can get to do what I want to do. But
Yeah, well, that is
So,
something.
yeah, so-
Ryan has one younger sister, and I'm one of four. And what we realized was,
where are you on the scale?
I have an older brother and two younger sisters. So I have a little bit
Oh,
of
okay. Oh.
oldest and a little bit of a middle child in me.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like we've talked about it, and me and my four siblings are very close in age, and so our free time was relatively structured, which is not a bad thing. You know, we did a ton of sports, a ton of activities, a ton of clubs, which I think is partially so that my parents could stay sane, because there's four of us, so it's like keep them moving. Whereas Ryan and his sister both had a little bit more unstructured free time, which lends itself really well to skateboarding. But it's been a really interesting realization of how we think about when you have free time, what do you do with it? And he has all of these things he would do, and I'm like, well, I've got, you know, I can read, or I can do this. And so it's just been a very interesting learning of like, oh, where and how you were raised really informs some of the hobbies you've picked up over your life.
It really does. Yeah, I'm always impressed with people, and it doesn't matter what it is, when people have picked up something outside of the norm of where they are, and then
Yeah.
they become good at it.
Yeah.
Like Rodney Mullen picking up skateboarding, and then he's like in the middle of Florida, and he
Yeah.
has like this little patch to do it on. And I'm like, how do you stick at it for that long? But it's like the brain work. Yes, I fully agree, and very impressive. What is your spirit animal?
Ooh. So I used to say that my spirit animal was like a Rhodesian Ridgeback, because I had a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and those are
Oh, yeah.
animals that are incredibly athletic. They are very they can be very independent and a little stubborn, which I think matches, but dogs
Yeah,
in general, friendly, blah, blah, blah. I went to the Avril Lavigne Greatest Hits tour, and like partway through it, Ryan turned to me and was like, maybe Avril Lavigne is your spirit animal. So, you know, it's hard to know, really. But I feel like I'm probably closer to like a dog that has a lot of energy and like a little attitude. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I like it. My neighbor had a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and it would escape all the time. And just recently, I'd met one that my son's was on the baseball team. It's the chillest dog ever. It's a little bit older, so I think it's like, oh yeah, but it's so chill. You'd walk over and it's just like, yeah, thank you for letting me pet you. And,
They're great dogs. They love eating. Like, they're known for counter surfing because they're bigger, and so they'll just.
oh yeah.
My dog drove my mom crazy. Ate like an entire lasagna fresh out of the oven once, and my mom was not happy about that. But
Oh no. That back end would have been a bit
Yeah.
worrisome at that time.
oh yeah.
What is something you say to yourself? I can't believe I did that.
Oh my gosh.
Do you want me to do an example?
I can't believe I live in a van.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
Yeah. In fact, like, my whole family will say and most of my friends, they can't believe it. I can't believe I live in a van. I can't believe I let Ryan convince me to do a bridge jump photo after we got married. And those are like the safe for work kind of answers I'd probably say.
Oh yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Who is your go-to person?
It's probably Ryan. I think so Ryan and I, before we started dating, we were roommates. So we actually have a really deep friendship foundation, which is really nice.
Cool.
Yeah, we have, I think we have a really nice communication and understanding of each other's personality. But also growing up with 3 other siblings, like, you got a person you can go to for anything, right? Like, one person for this, one person for that. So I feel very lucky that my community of family and close friends are people that I can go to. But for better or worse, Ryan is stuck listening to the just the word vomit that comes out of me.
No, I feel like it's only fair for the skate vomit that probably comes out of him that you go. I think I accidentally skipped over this a second ago. Did you say you did a bridge jump after your wedding?
Yeah. So Ryan is, to add to his skateboarding, he skateboards, snowboards, he tries to surf, he skydives. That's my fault, because for his birthday one year, I thought he would like going skydiving, so we went skydiving. He liked it so much that he went and got his license, so now he skydives regularly. And then he dove in college, so now he cliff jumps. And so he's got...
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to keep it, if he wants to add another one, we got to drop one because it's kind of a lot. But we were planning our wedding, and I'm sure many people out there can relate, that he had no opinions on almost anything about the wedding. And when it came to photos, I was like, okay, like, we're gonna do these standard photos. We have the option. We got married just outside of Glacier National Park in Montana. And he was like, oh, we should definitely do the like add-on adventure thing where you can go into the park and take photos. And he was like, do you think we can get like a cliff jumping photo of us in our wedding gear? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to need to think about that. Like, I'm afraid of heights. Like, I don't know. And so he would check in, and I was like, okay, like, I see the vision. I get why it would be fun. And so we asked our photographer, and she was like, oh, wow. Like, obviously no one has done that, whatever. And so we like kind of collaborated on trying to find spots in the park where you could do a cliff jump. And there weren't a ton because of like the glacier water, whatever, but there was a bridge that people jumped. So we got there, it's like wedding weekend. Ryan and his friends went, they all jumped off the bridge. It was probably like 25, 30 feet high. And he was like, great, like totally safe, fine, good. And I was like, okay, great. So then we didn't tell anyone. It was the day or two after we had gotten married. We put all of our stuff back on, we go do these photos, and then we end at this bridge jump. And for everyone that's, worried about, because people drown in their wedding dresses. It's not uncommon. Like, if you are like a beach bride or a boat bride and you jump in, you can like drown in your wedding dress. So we took a lot of precautions. Ryan had already jumped in. I swam in college, so like I know I'm a relatively formidable swimmer. And then we had like a couple exit plans, so like my dress was not fully zipped up so that if something happened I could swim out of it. If it was too heavy, it was like very close to the side, so if like I couldn't move, Ryan could push me. And then we got up there and I almost didn't make it, but then we jumped off and swam away, and my dress came out cleaner than it went in because the glacier water was so fresh. So yeah, it worked out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you guys have, if you can, if you're willing to, are you able to share a photo with me so I can put it here?
Yeah. We have a very good photo, and we also have the video. So yeah, I'll send you the one. We have a photo. Whenever we get out of this van, I'm planning on getting it kind of blown up because it's a very cool photo. So I'll send it to you. Yeah.
That is so cool. Yeah, please do. And if you're okay with it, I'll put it in here so people can see that. Because just a second ago, I was like, hang on, did she say bridge jump? Like, I just didn't put two and two together. Like, I was like, I thought, like, we were on a bridge and we did the jump where everyone does that. And I was like, that didn't sound like...
We did the bridge jump. We got like the photo, and then everyone had kind of flown home, and so like my parents were in the air, and so I like texted them the picture with like no context, and they landed in my mouth. I was like, oh my gosh, like, and like they'd been on a plane with our friends, and they're like, did you know they were doing this? And everyone was like, no, we had no idea.
God, yes. Well, I understand what you say. You can't believe you did that because that's amazing.
Yeah.
God, that's good. Okay. What's an unspoken social rule that you love or you hate?
Unspoken social rule. Oh, I'm sure.
Like for men, sometimes if you go to the urinal and there's open urinals, you don't stand next to each other. You take one apart. I don't care personally, as long as there's no splashback on me.
But people do care. Unspoken social rule. Gosh. Not supposed
Has there been anything when you guys have been traveling where you've been like, oh, you know what? There's an empty parking lot with the vans, and the van comes and parks right next to you, and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna deal with Susie and Gary again.
Interesting. I'm on the spot, so I tend to have a lot of opinions, so I'm sure I have a great answer here. Unspoken social rule that I think is good or bad. Shoot. I'm thinking about like food in restaurants for some reason. And I just don't know. Okay. This might be a little bit of a hot take right now, but
all right.
Tipping.
I like it.
I think tipping in American culture has gotten super out of control. And if I am going somewhere and I'm buying a coffee and you don't even hand me a cup, I grab the cup and I go fill up my own coffee, I shouldn't have to tip because I'm doing all of the work. I'm tipping you for me doing it. And I think and I understand wages are a huge problem, but if we're gonna like charge the consumer and make it reliant on tips, just increase wages and make the food more expensive. Do not force me to decide, well, do I give 15%, 18%, 20%? If this person did a bad job. Yeah.
I'm with you. So up here in Washington, I think they're at the $15 mark now. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of signs will be like, hey, get $20 an hour, like, or whatever. And I'm like, so I'm not saying that I don't want anyone to make more money. Like, make your money, do you. But up here, it has been 20%, 25%, and 28% is the tipping. And I'm like, this is like adding so much onto the bill. So when I go take my kids out to like, they got this drive-in burger place that you can go to. And I'm like, if I take the kids to there, it's adding this like $20 or $30 onto that. And I'm like, that's not what we signed up for. Yeah. Just recently did I notice they went back down to 15, 18, and 20. Or 15, 20, and 25, maybe it is. And like, I'll always hit the 20 mark. Like, for some reason, like, that's the like standard for me. But I do appreciate that they probably had some feedback and been like, you know what, we need to rein our neck in a little bit on this.
Yeah, I've heard people who are like, well, if you set it as like 20, 25, 30, a lot of people will just blindly click the 30. And I'm like, that's not, I get it. And I feel like,
Yeah.
you have to be careful about it. And again, I think where we are heading with the cost of things, the cost of living, and what our typical wages are,
Yeah.
it should hopefully break down at some point. But my gosh, the guilt and obligation surrounding tipping is
the
so
guilt.
stressful.
When they turn it around, I'm like, a few of the people at the burger place I know because I go there more than I should. And so I'll make a joke with them. I was like, which one I've pressed. And they're like, yeah, we can feel it. Like so they turn it, but they're definitely, you can feel the touch on the side. They're doing it.
And you can see it. And like, I mean, you're just like, I'm ordering the most simple, like a cup of coffee that cost me $6. I shouldn't have to tip on that. $6 should be more than enough.
I couldn't agree more. That is definitely one that in Australia we don't tip unless it's like you've had the best service ever, and that's only when you tip. But the wages are higher, and so the cost of living's a little bit higher and everything like that. But I'd prefer that over the tipping. All right, we're getting close to the last two questions. What are 3 things that you are grateful for?
Ooh. I am grateful. Oh gosh, I feel like I'm gonna sound like a lame-o, but that's fine. I am very grateful for my health. I think I am.
That one's
30.
a common one, so that's a good.
Yeah, I'm 30. I feel like 30 is not old, but I feel like it's the age where people start to develop health issues, find out they have health issues, or lifestyle can really diverge. And so I feel very grateful that because I'm a crazy person and I'm always moving, like that has helped my health a lot. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm incredibly grateful for the way my parents raised me. I think, a lot.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to forget that your parents are humans, right? Like you grow up and you think your parents are a different version of an adult, but in reality, they're working just with the best that they've got. And I think my parents instilled a lot of great values, and they moved us overseas for a couple years while I was growing up. And that just was a really challenging thing as a child. We lived in Kenya and we moved back right when Mean Girls came out.
Wow.
So it was a little challenging socially to reintegrate.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was a really, really, like, I just am really grateful for, like, the values and experiences they prioritized. And then, I'm really grateful that Ryan forced me to go on this van life trip. I have, like, probably not been...
You sound like you're captive.
Yeah, well, sometimes I feel...
Do you need to blink twice, like, if you're okay?
I think it has become very apparent that, like, there are certain things that I don't get from the way we've done van life. Like, we've been focused on traveling and experiencing things, and I've learned I need routine, I need a consistent community, and that's fine. And so that has been challenging in the van, but the van life has, like, it has forced us off of what I would call, like, the hamster wheel of life, like, go to college, get a job, get married, have kids. And we have just, like, forcibly removed ourselves from that and put ourselves in a number of abnormal or uncomfortable situations while getting to see firsthand, like, what America is actually made of, which I think is really important in this political situation. And so despite how challenging it's been at time, I'm very grateful to have that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of that. But I also think Americans lose, like, Australians have this, like, gap year usually, or a couple of years, and they'll go from high school and they'll go traveling through, like, the Commonwealth countries.
Yep.
And I feel like Americans should have to do that, because a lot of the Australians might go with one idea and they'll come back being like, oh man, I hung out with these people from this country, and, like, we're like best friends. I'm going over to Japan to hang out with them, and they might have had a different take on that culture beforehand. Yeah. So I feel like Australians sort of, not saying that I was just trying to give an example, but like,
No. I
it
totally
definitely,
agree. I think like having the opportunity to experience something more than the life you were raised in is really important. And like within the
yeah,
US, driving around, I mean, it is incredible how many people live in double wide trailers or with 40 miles between the houses. And it's just like when we think
yeah.
about what's going on in America, the lack of acknowledgement of how many people who live like that is, I mean, it's we are so much more diverse than we give ourselves credit for.
Well, this is what I can't. Well, obviously, I've got my citizenship, but I'm not American,
Yeah.
so I get an outside perspective straight away.
Hmm.
But I really struggle when they say the average American because the country, it's like having 50 little countries inside
Yes.
one country. So you say the average American. For me, the average American around where I live are mainly white dudes, but there's so many Indian people around here. There's so many Asian people around here because I
Hmm.
live in the tech bubble, one of the tech bubbles
Yeah.
of America. But I could go down to Tacoma, which is about an hour away, and that's going to be a different lifestyle than what it is here.
Yeah.
And so their average American is different than here. And so that's a really hard sort of statement. And
Oh,
whenever I tell
totally.
people, I live in this bubble. I can't talk outside of this bubble. I can talk about how what it looks like from this bubble to there, but that doesn't mean anything really. So
Yeah.
I agree.
I think
I'm
I
with you on
think
that.
like when people complain about the American healthcare system, which is garbage and a nightmare and a pain to work with, both on the like I've been the user, but working in HR, I've also been like the employer administrator. And everyone's like, well, think about all these other countries. And I'm like, all of these other countries are smaller with homogenous populations. So, like, no, the
Yeah.
American system isn't working, but we can't just make a switch to how other countries work because we are a bajillion times
Yeah.
bigger with way more diverse situations. It's just,
Well, there's so many people that have there's so many jobs and people that have hands in the pots that need you flip a whole industry like healthcare, and there's so many people that'll be out of jobs or like displaced for a while the dust settles. Now, not
yes.
saying that we lived in Australia from 2018 to 2021. We moved back there, and the
Yeah.
healthcare system there now not perfect, but my gosh, no one there worries about healthcare. It's not like
Yeah.
when you start a new job or someone's like, "So what the benefits you get?" You're like, "Well, I get this for healthcare and eye, dental, and all this."
Yep.
No, you don't even think about that stuff. No, that's not a conversation piece. The fact that that is here, that's the worrisome part where you're like, "Oh man, I get good benefits." Like I worked at Nintendo, and my
Yeah.
wife worked at another company that was worth billions of dollars,
Yeah.
and mine was better than hers
Yep.
even though this company was like just as strong, but just because mine had a better name with it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. It's,
So
it's, I could get us way off track here, so I won't
yeah,
comment
fair
anymore,
enough,
but
fair
it's
enough. I
crazy.
feel you. I could as well. You could see the bubble of excitement about it. Um, okay, so this is the last question, Emily. I've had so much fun. I'm excited to do an illustration for you. You're the last episode for this season of it,
Ooh.
so very excited. It doesn't mean anything. There's nothing special. There's no fireworks. You just get to be the last. So the last question
Did we freeze
is you
up a
have to
little
wear a
bit?
shirt with a slogan on it for a year.
Oh, yeah.
What? Oh, did I freeze? Sorry.
Yeah, just a little bit. Sorry about that.
We're back.
Yeah, we're back.
That's okay. I can probably edit it out a little bit, so I'll start again. You have to wear a shirt with a slogan on it for a year. What does it say?
Oh my gosh. I have a shirt that I would wear. My
You have a
husband he got it for me. He tells me it's a little too sassy to wear, but it it says, do you watch Netflix?
Do I watch Netflix? Yeah. Have
Yeah,
you
okay,
seen the size of these two chins?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I sit
Well,
on the couch
what
and
if
watch
you were
Netflix.
like a Hulu loyalist, I have a shirt that says,
I didn't know there was a Hulu loyalist.
no. I have a shirt that says skip intro, like the button that you click, it says skip
Ah.
intro. And I think that is a hilarious shirt to wear around. But my husband says it looks very, very sassy. But I would probably wear that. And then second to that, if I were being a little bit more like sentimental, just because I think skip intro is like, it's TV, but it's also like a funny thing when you interact with people.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah,
second
yeah,
one,
yeah.
if I were being more sentimental, one of my favorite quotes is a Dr. Seuss quote, and it's, "Be who you are, say what you mean. Those who matter, be who you are, say what you mean. Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah, it's a good one.
So, my crude mind, when you said skip intro, I was like, oh, skip the foreplay. Let's just get into it. That's how I thought.
But that's what's so great about it is it can be interpreted
Yeah.
and it's conversation starting. It's technically I got it because of it was my favorite feature when Netflix came out of that. I'd be like, skip intro, skip intro, skip intro.
Yeah, yeah.
But it lends
Yeah,
itself well to entertaining conversations.
It does. It does. I like that. Well, Emily, thank you so much for being on here. Your content is so humorous and it just nails it for me and my wife so much. I love it. I'm stoked that it has brought you into the skate world and your husband is getting to reap the benefits of it, like getting shoes and stuff like that. That is so sweet. And yeah, thanks for having such a wonderful conversation. I'll get an illustration out to you in the next couple of, it'll be, I think I've got 2 or 3 episodes before you and I'm every 2 weeks, so it might be
Take your
6
time.
weeks or so, but yeah, but I'm excited to do that.
Yeah.
And I hope you've had fun.
I'll send you my bridge jump photo, so it'll be a nice exchange. And thank you. This was very, very fun. And talking to people with Australian accents, always a good time.
It's my, like, as we were talking about before, being able to see into the American world. I always say that if someone says, what's it like living in America? Well, I have an Australian accent, so I get away with a lot. So, like, when I'm playing pickleball, I swear like a drunken sailor.
Yep.
And I'm so close to being able to say the C word. In America, the C word's really hard to get away with.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I studied abroad in Melbourne, and
Oh, did you really?
oh, yeah. And when I realized that you can use that term for friends, I was like, let's go. And I will not say it on here, but I love dropping that.
Wait. So hang on. I've got a whole theory about this.
All right.
Okay. So hopefully people stick around for this theory. But
this is the interesting
I
stuff.
think, yeah. So I really think that women should use the C word more often.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they should also use their female body parts to uplift themselves.
Oh, totally.
Ready? So when men go, oh, no, what do you got? Like no nuts, or you got like a limp dick? Like they talk about, they drag it down, but they also talk about it for me. Oh man, that guy's like hung like a horse. That guy's like got the biggest gonads for like trying that trick. Like, oh man, like there's like they lift it up, but they also to bring it. Oh, that guy's a bit of a dick. That guy's a cockhead. Oh, that guy's a good dick. You know what I mean? Like, there's like they lift it up, but with the female body parts, they don't do the same thing. Men and women both use it to like bring it down. Oh, what do you got? Sand in your vag. You got like what you got like? Oh, you've been a bit of a pussy, like that sort of thing. But, and I tell my wife and her friends this all the time, that they should be using it. The female body parts do way more than the men body parts in type of toughness. So I would be like, hey, you should labia up, or why don't you ovary up? Like, oh, come on, you cunt, let's get going. Like, here's my cunts over here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, use this stuff to lift it up. But it can also, like, you can do it like, oh, that person's a bit of a cunt, you know? Oh,
totally.
man. Well, their labia's a bit crooked, if you know what I mean. Like, so you can do both, but do both, you know what I mean? Like, lift up, and you can, like, bring, and that way, no one's, like, going to be, like, hurt. Like, if you say the see you next Tuesday, like we do in Australia, it's not like you're not butthurt about it sort of thing. You're like, all right, like, cool, yeah, use it. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I think where Americans get stuck is America was founded by puritanicals and Australia was founded by a bunch of people banished / thrown in jail. So like the roots through which, we learned what's okay and not okay is like, not, women get shamed for everything when in reality, like, we are a whole lot tougher and able to balance many more things. And it's just, and like the concept around women's sexuality is so shameful when in reality it's like, this is a lot more impressive than anything you guys got going on in there.
Exactly. I just think one of the things we talked about earlier. We said your parents gave you certain qualities. One thing my mum gave me was everybody is equal, and I can't stress enough how in my brain I don't see how anyone cannot do anything someone else does. Like I just don't like. I understand there's physical capabilities of our bodies. So like I can't give birth, and there's going to be some women that are stronger than me because they go to the gym and they could do a laboring job. Like I don't have any calluses on my hands because I draw all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's going to be women that could do better jobs out there or like woodworking stuff. So I don't view it like a man versus woman. I mean, like it's literally like what you can do physically could do that. But there's also stuff where my wife, like I'll be sick. Like I had a cold the last couple of days and I'm like, my wife will power through a cold until it like stops her dead. And I'll be like, Jesus.
Nothing weaker than a man with a cold. Nothing weaker.
Oh God, we're pathetic. Look, I'm pathetic. I can't speak for every man. I'm sure there's some that power through. But like I've got the nose spray out. I've got the Dayquil. Like I'll take NyQuil at night. My wife will be like, oh, I might have a Tylenol. Oh, it's like, I don't really want to take it. And I'll be like, no, just give it to me. I'll be like, oh, I need to. And she'll be like, I'll power through. So she's way tougher. But, so yes, I fully agree. And it is amazing to me that there's not more, like, I feel weird when I say this, like I'm being not out of pocket, because I feel like I'm in the right pocket, but when I say this in other crowds, that people like, you see it goes, oh, that's a bit weird, but
it is interesting, and I think, I mean, really, what my current hypothesis is Americans and maybe humans in general are really bad about considering other perspectives, and so that's just kind of gotten us tied up, right? You know, you're doubling down on your own perspective when in reality, like, everyone gets to the same destination through different routes, and it's
so I wonder if it's right that. Yeah. I always think about it like we've all got 80 years about on this planet. Yeah. And as long as you're not hurting anyone, then you should be able to do whatever you want. I don't care if you want to get in a dress, and as long as you're not trying to force other people to do it, or you're not like doing, there's not another agenda behind, not another agenda, like another reason behind that, like you're like a serial killer or something like that, and then that's your like tell. I don't know, like, but to me, I'm like, it just doesn't matter. Like, you want to suck a dick, male or female, I don't care. Do your thing. They couldn't care at all. Don't
impact other people. We're just really
other people at all.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less. Like, you do you. 80 years in place. Just don't harm anyone intentionally.
Exactly.
Couldn't care.
And like, if it is bothering you, maybe figure out why. Instead of being upset, maybe figure out why it's bothering you.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Just a thought. Actually, I could go on this forever. Like, God. Yes. Emily, I feel like at one point, you and your husband and I and my wife should, if you guys are traveling around or if we're somewhere, I would love for us to get together. I could watch your husband skate with you because I'd probably just roll around and do a little ollies, but...
Yeah. I'll let you do the filming, and your wife and I will go do something else. It'll be great.
Yeah, that sounds great. You guys can go enjoy your interests.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Matty.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic.